The vision that will have the Blues squirming on Monday, a fresh Mark of the Year contender from a young dog, and Chad Wingard's curious three-quarter time moment with a Hawks teammate. All that and more to come from the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. But Kane Corns, we have a new top of the table side. The Western Bulldogs far too clinical over the Demons, despite being pushed in this final term.
Yeah, I thought they were, Mitch. I didn't think the game was ever really in danger for them, despite Melbourne getting to within a reasonable and manageable margin at stages throughout the game, which we'll get to. But that man's a star. He's the All-Australian captain, Marcus Bontempelli. What about his performance again tonight? And in the last quarter, when the game was on the line, 9 disposals, kicked the goal, had the goal assist, finished with 10 clearances and 755 metres gained again. So another 3 votes for the Brownlow medal favourite. He is the All-Australian captain. He's been an unbelievable leader this year, and the Western Bulldogs, I thought, were clinical in tricky conditions at the MCG tonight.
And they even their ledger against the Demons this year jumped them into top spot. You speak about that polish for the Dogs tonight. Have a look at some of these numbers, particularly the midfield here on the screen. Their disposal efficiency well down tonight, including Christian Petrarca and Max Gawn.
Well, that was the difference for me, just how clean the Western Bulldogs were around the footy and how efficient they were going inside 50. So from a numbers point of view and a stats perspective, pretty even from a team viewpoint, but this is the difference. They were scrappy. Look, their midfielders had enough of the footy, as you can see there, but in tricky conditions, they didn't handle it well. They certainly didn't use it well, and it wasn't an efficient Melbourne, and they kicked 65 points again. So how many times have we done the round so far and highlighted Melbourne's scoring and lack thereof? Well, that was the case again tonight. And they don't have, I don't think, enough talent in their forward 50 right now to cause the opposition any serious headaches. So Jackson's hardly touched it in the last 5 weeks. He's kicked 2 goals. Ben Brown did his bit, and Pickett's in better form. McDonald does a little bit, but you compare the talent up the other end that the Western Bulldogs had, and that was the difference for me.
And both sides finished with this game, same scoring shots tonight, but the Demons' inaccuracy cost them. I just thought Bailey Smith as well, without Dunkley, without Treloar in that midfield, he's really gone from the wing into the midfield and stepped up in the last few weeks. I mentioned it off the top of the show, the Mark of the Year contender. Where does this sit from you in terms of marks this year from Cody Waitman?
Probably third for me. I like the hanger, and I love the way he goes about it. He plays with a smile on his face. This is moments after the hanger as well. He got over the back, and you don't often see that from a Melbourne side. But what about the sit on Max Gawn, the extra little bit of sideways sort of a hang there? It's not going to be the last one he takes either, because he's a small forward. He was recruited. You knew how strong he was overhead. They spoke about that. He goes for his marks. He's got really good judgment. He's tough, and look, he's cemented himself in that forward mix, which isn't easy at the Western Bulldogs. And we'll just love the way he plays his footy. He's aggressive, he's enthusiastic, and he plays with some joy.
We've spoken about the Dogs' defence in recent weeks, maybe being one of their smaller Achilles heel this season. Alex Keith goes down with a hamstring injury. This is going to be a big blow, and it did force them to play Josh Schache in defence tonight. It could be his Liam Jones moment, Kane, to save his career.
Yeah, he was good tonight, Josh Schache. And he was selected and he played in defence even before Alex Keith went down with an injury, so they had planned for him to do that. He's going to have to play there. I mean, if there's one area that the Dogs are going to struggle, it is their key defenders. So Schache will have to do that. Look, the conditions suited him tonight. I'm not ready to say it's going to be an absolute success. I'm not sure he's physical enough, and I'm not sure he's good enough in the one-on-one contest to hold down a spot as we get towards the business end. But you'd think Alex Keith misses 3 to 4 weeks, and Schache's going to have to hold up until he comes back.
To Marvel Stadium earlier today, the first of 2 games at the venue for the day. Carlton's biggest loss of the season now, Kane. The alarm bells are ringing. The first time North Melbourne's hit 100 points for the year. Take us through some of this vision.
Well, if you want to sum up Carlton, and if you want to sum up what will eventually be the demise of David Teague, this is it. That they do not care defensively. And watch Jaden Stevenson, who's been in ripping form, just waltz through the middle of the ground, dance around a couple, freeze it here. There are 9 North Melbourne players inside their own forward 50. Carlton just don't get back, and they don't get back to support. Defence doesn't mean enough to them. They don't defend like their life is on it. Once again here, look at the ease of this. And we've shown this countless times this year, but you got players complaining, you got players flat-footed, you got players not chasing, you got open goal squares. It's just an unbelievable set of vision that we could have shown repeatedly. They've conceded 8 times 100 points this season, which is more than any other team. So this will be the end of David Teague. I thought during that third quarter, the Carlton players gave up on the game this season, and I really do think they've given up on the coach.
So 7 goals unanswered in the third quarter. You think this is the end? When are you putting the timeline on it? Is it this week? Is it the end of the season? Because he's contracted for next season, David Teague.
Yeah, I don't know if it's when it is. I certainly don't think it'll be this week, and it won't be before the review is handed down, and we'll see some images of here. What, unfortunately for David Teague, he hasn't valued the defensive aspects of the game. There's some big statements when he was appointed that he wanted to take the opposition offensively. That's fine, but you have to defend the ground, and Carlton Football Club does not want to defend. And at the end of the day, there are defensive coaches that could come in and turn Carlton into a 4-goal better side instantly by just valuing defence. So I don't know when the end is, whether David Teague lasts another year or whether it's at the end of the year, but it felt to me like the Carlton players gave up on him in that third quarter today.
They were missing some big names and some big timber in attack. Harry Mackay wasn't there. Mitch McGovern's battled his injury. No Levi Caswell, but you can't be losing those games to the bottom-ranked side in the manner that they did today. On the flip side, for the Roos, Kane, Nick Larkey, 7 goals for the big Suv Larkey. They're calling him Sev Larkey down at Arden Street at the moment. Take us through this, because a lot of them were on Jacob Wiedering.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal performance, wasn't it? And Liam Jones or Jacob Wiedering, and Wiedering's been in ripping form, like in All-Australian, the conversation. So this is 7 really good goals. Look, he's nearly up to 50 games, 23 years of age, so he's about at that breakout level, isn't he, for a key forward? Sometimes you just take a little bit longer, but it's nice when you get this sort of service. I mean, beautiful service from Taron Thomas, who was on fire. He kicked 4 and had 23 as well. So it makes it a little bit easier. Finally, he's working out that, in a good side, playing forward's a little bit easier. So once he kicked 34 goals for the season now, it's an absolute breakout game for him. What that will do for his confidence is you can't measure. I still think he needs one more key forward to help him. So we'll wait and see what they do in the off-season. But it was a terrific performance from a lot of the young North Melbourne players today. You
mentioned Taron Thomas. Luke Davies-Uniacke, 28 disposals for him today as well. He's continuing to shine in the second half of the season. Dark day for Carlton. We did pick up 2 highlights, though. A Mark of the Year contender for Tom De Koning.
Yeah, I actually like him. Look, he's been forced to play out of his weight division. He's really the only key forward or ruckman on their list at the moment. But that was great. And Ed Curno's been just such a warrior for a long time. That was a really nice finish in game number 200 for him. So they were about the only 2 positives that we could find. And disappointing, the effort that Ed's teammates put in today, because he's been such a, as I said, warrior for that club, and he deserved a better effort from a lot of his teammates.
Yeah, especially considering how much they spoke about it during the week at the Blues. To our AAMI clangers, we go next. Kane. Darcy Cameron, what is he doing here? Man's got to know his limitations.
Yeah, he's gone the double. He's gone there's the one miss, and he's gone again. I haven't seen anything like that. So I like him as a player, but not his finest moment. Nor was this.
Will Powell, he's got to realise it's a kick in, not a handball in. He's lucky to get the ball back, but he's tried something different from the full back line. This is our next AAMI clanger, Kane. Joe Danaher, indifferent day. We'll get to more of that, but he can't be missing those.
No, you just go to the drop punt. Joe runs straight at the goals and kick an easy drop punt. He does make it look a little bit too difficult, as does Ben Long here. That's the easiest miss we've seen this year. He's half a metre out from goal and he hits the umpire. They went upstairs to check it, but clearly that was going to hit the post, and that was a point. So a couple of nasty misses. Sticking at Optus Stadium, Kane, a really important win for the Eagles to entrench themselves in the top 8. St Kilda hung around. They got to within 7 points in the final term, but it was built off this man, Tim Kelly, in his second term. Yeah, I liked a lot about what St Kilda did. We'll get to that. But Tim Kelly's individual second term with 13 disposals, 5 inside 50s, 3 clearances, 2 goal assists and a goal. I thought it was the best individual quarter that I've seen from a midfielder this year. So this was back to his Geelong days, his running power, his combination with Nick Naitanui in the centre bounce. The Eagles were awesome. You're seeing this here. The Eagles are awesome out of centre bounce again. I think that is, of any team in the competition, the biggest strength that any team has, and that was on the line late. But in terms of the Saints, they were good, and there were some positives to take out of it. They just lacked a little bit of polish when the game was on the line, and the Eagles are able to get the generation, the run throughout the centre bounce when they needed it. But really important win for the Eagles.
There's so much to like about Max King. He almost pulled them over the line single-handedly today. 8 contested marks. Let's go through each of them here.
He's a freak, an absolute freak, and hit a flat patch, didn't he, throughout the year, particularly his goal kicking. So to see him respond like he has is a sign that this kid's got some character. Not many can take 8 contested marks in a game of footy. Like, we're talking Wayne Carey's got the record with 10, and Max King's doing this in season number 3. His goal kicking looks really sound now. You can see that he's definitely put some time into that, and he's got momentum through the ball. 6-1, 8 contested marks, career high breakout game. He was the best player on the ground by a mile. So in a losing side, to do that up against good opposition was so impressive. And when he gets a run and jump at it, and he can launch with those long levers in the 200-centimetre frame, and he puts a bit more muscle on, he's going to be unstoppable. Questionable why Adam Simpson wouldn't put Jeremy McGovern on him. I mean, you got a 4-time All-Australian back there. I would have made that move a lot sooner than what he did.
Yeah, Harry Edwards, a young rookie, got the job and was shown up convincingly today. A blow for the Eagles, though. Liam Ryan, he's had his injury troubles this year. Pulls his hamstring in the process of kicking a goal. Didn't look good. Adam Simpson confirming post-game it's going to be a few weeks on the sidelines. Yeah,
it was a massive blow. It was such an early stage in the game as well. And, I mean, he's one of, if not the most watchable players in the game. So that was a blow. I did notice Willie Rioli in the stands, and the Optus Stadium crowd gave him a massive ovation when he was put on the big screen. That's going to give him a huge blow. Like, if he's in good shape, I'm playing Willie Rioli. I think Mitch is eligible in round 23. So if Liam Ryan doesn't come back, there's a nice option there for him, provided that Willie's in shape and fit.
All right, up to the Gabba we go. Next, Kane, the Q clash. It was massive for Brisbane to hold in touch with the top 4. They trailed by 27 points at the main break. This is what Chris Fagan said to Fox Footy.
Yeah, we had a bit of a chat, or more a dig at their pride, more to say, listen, you boys, you know, you're better than that. You've got a lift. So, you know, they're playing their normal roles, mate. They've just got to play them a little bit better than they are at the moment.
Singled out the midfield at half-time, and they bounced back 13 goals to 1 after the main break.
Yeah, what a swing. We haven't seen a swing like this in any game this year, I don't think. Chris Fagan's I think he's a really good halftime coach. I think there's been a number of examples over his coaching career where the lines have been really flat and coming to halftime, he's either given them a real rev up, and we've seen images of that through the change rooms cameras, and you've got a glimpse of it there and an insight into what he was doing. Some of this is, you know, diabolical from Gold Coast, who are really good. So it's disappointing because they were so strong in the first half, but some of these second half numbers, as you mentioned, 13 goals to 1. The Lions were plus 39 in disposals, 31 of those contested, 20 more inside 50s they had in the second half. And Jared Lyons won the Marcus Ashcroft medal for the second time this year. I did think the Big O was good as well.
Yeah.
Some of his work last week against Richmond was questioned. He got towed up by Big Nate, but he had 16 contested disposals, the big ruckman, and Gold Coast crying out for a ruckman. That they've been smashed in that department this year, and that was on display again today.
Yeah, another reminder for Jared Lyons against his former side. Joe Danaher, the emphasis is going to be on him in the second half of this season. An indifferent day, as I mentioned earlier. He's kicked a couple out of his backside, though.
Yeah, well, his numbers are great. Like 19 disposals, he took 6 marks, kicked 3 goals, and had 12 score involvements. I just don't know if I can trust him in a final. I'm interested to see how this goes. He makes some really perplexing decisions at times. I thought on a couple of occasions today he was reasonably selfish. We're going to see a pretty good example here. Look at Berry. Look, that just has to go to Jared Berry there. There's no other option to do that. If that's Tom Hawkins, if that's Dustin Martin, the best players and the best forwards, give that off and make good decisions. So in a final, stuff like this, can we trust Joe in a final? I'm waiting to see. And without Hipwood there, I think it's going to be a big question mark over the Lions and how their forward line functions in September.
As for Port Adelaide, they're battling with the Lions for that 4th spot. Back on Friday night, we've spoken heaps about Travis Boak, Ollie Wines, Charlie Dixon, but some of their mid-tier players went to new heights.
Well, they've needed it. Yeah, Carl Amon, he's been a good player for 3 or 4 years now. That's an exceptional finish from him. We're going to see some of Willem Drew. I thought they had a real emphasis to handball receive and run through the middle of the ground. Now, Collingwood didn't do much at all to shut this down, but this sort of ball movement, so you saw Houston get on the end of it, split through the middle, and then Willem Drew actually getting a lot more of the footy now and being a bit more damaging with it. But I thought Dan Houston was terrific. Like goals like this, not many in the comp can do that. If you allow him to run around on his own in the back line, then he will cut you up. So his ball use. We'll see this again to Todd Marshall. Todd Marshall responded. He's been under serious pressure, particularly from the Port Adelaide fans. Ken Hinkley's been as loyal to any player, I think, that any coach has been to Todd Marshall, and he repaid that with 3 goals and 15. So how the forward line sets up with Laddams, Dixon, Georgiades and Marshall, can they be that tall? I'm not sure they can, particularly when Robbie Gray and if Fantasia comes back in that front six.
As for the Pies, they had their moments on the night. 8 players, Kane, taken from the last 2 drafts playing for them. The new coach is starting to take shape, the coaching race. He's going to have a bit to work with on his hands.
Well, he will, yeah. A couple of these I like. I really like Bianco. I mean, Noble's been a mainstay there. Poulter's got some tricks, and Ollie Henry's been terrific, I think, in the last 2 to 3 weeks. So he's certainly a viable option as that sort of third tall, mobile tall down there. He's got exceptional work rate. So through necessity, they've had to rebuild this list, and it's probably come about earlier than they would have liked, but sometimes that's forced upon you, and that's been the case at Collingwood.
They're going to do their last 4 weeks without Scott Pendlebury, the skipper, out for the season with a hairline fracture in his lower left leg. This is how it happened in the first term. Is this his last game as Pies skipper, do you think?
Yeah, probably. So they're going to go on. He's going to sign a 1-year contract. He wants to go on. The club wants him to go on. I'd like to see him do what Travis Boak has done and free himself of the captaincy. Brody Grundy's got to put his hand up for it, surely. I mean, a bit's been spoken about Taylor Adams. His body constantly lets him down. Brody Grundy is the natural captain for me. And can he do what Max Gawn has done and lead his team from the ruck? I think absolutely he can.
I wouldn't discount Jeremy Howe in that conversation either. Potentially one from left field for the Pies. Tonight at Marvel Stadium, Hawks and the Crows, both teams fighting to avoid bottom spot. The Crows just did enough when it mattered most.
Well, the difference was in this game was the efficiency going inside forward 50. So Hawthorn had more entries, but we're seeing here that the ball use from Brodie Smith, and this is late, was extraordinary off half back. A couple of Brodie Smith's kicks, 3 of them tonight, were as good as you're likely to see. Ned McHenry was better. Crows took 15 marks inside 50. Hawthorn took 7. So that's just the difference in the game. Everywhere else across the board, statistically, very even contest, and 2 sides that are about the same position on the ladder and have about the same amount of talent on their list. In the end, Adelaide were just far too efficient going inside 50, and Hawthorn weren't up the other end.
4 goals for Tex Walker, cuts Harry Mackay's lead in the Coleman back to 6. As for the Hawks, though, equal now with North Melbourne, only a small percentage ahead of the Roos in that race for the wooden spoon. This didn't look good at 3/4 time. An experienced player, Chad Wingard, arguing with a 2nd or 3rd year player in Jacob Kaczynski.
Yeah, I don't mind players having a robust discussion and sort of questioning each other on the field about what's going on. This went on for far too long for me, for Wingard. He carried on like a pork chop tonight. So he walks away from the group. He clearly didn't hear what he wanted to hear, and then that was it. He didn't want any more of it. It went on for probably 2 minutes too long than it should have. And as I said, I've got no issue with a senior player questioning someone or vice versa. But this sort of stuff here, throwing back of the head, the frustration, not being involved in the group, is so deflating for the rest of the team and for probably the most talented player on their list. I don't think that was good enough from Chad tonight, who played well. And he often does. Like, he's really competitive, but some of that stuff and some of his body language has let him down, and it was probably one of the reasons that Port Adelaide weren't that disappointed to let him go. 5-year deal under Alistair Clarkson. It'll be interesting to see what happens with players like Chad Wingard in the next model under Sam Mitchell. Let's get to the ladder as it sits midway through round 19. As you can see, the Western Bulldogs on top. Geelong can jump Melbourne tomorrow, and pretty important game for Sydney if they want to keep in touch with the top 4. Yeah, so I think we're at the end of this round. When you coming in, we'll get an indication of where everything's at. And the Western Bulldogs and Geelong, I think, the 2 best teams in it. Now, Geelong have to get it done against a depleted Richmond tomorrow. You think they would. The race for the 8, you count out Carlton now, you count out St Kilda. I think the top 8 is probably settled the way that it is. I can't see any of really 9, 10, 11 or 12 jumping over Essendon to get that 8th position. Here are those 3 games remaining. Important game, as I mentioned, for Sydney to keep in touch with the top 4. Cats can jump to 2nd. And it's an 8-point game, Essendon and the Giants. It's a big one. The Giants do respond usually pretty well after a loss. So they'll challenge the Bombers, and we'll find out, how good Essendon are. They won last week against North, but it wasn't particularly convincing. So massive round to come. Looking forward to it.
To our one more thing now, Travis Boak, his 300th game, 10th play in a row to win, or in recent times to win their 300th match. He's been a fantastic servant of this footy club.
He's a champion. Yeah, he's absolutely a Port Adelaide champion. I thought the club celebrated it as best they possibly could have under really trying circumstances. And he delivered, again, as he always does, and such a consistent player. Nearly every year he's been top 10 in their best and fairest. So he had another 30 and was terrific and ran himself into the ground like he always does and showing no signs of slowing down. So I was wrapped they could get the win for him.
Seems like he's become more professional after 30, just like you, Kane.
Well, maybe. He's always been pretty professional. You know, from the moment he walked in the footy club, you knew it was pretty determined to have a significant career, and he's exceeded all those expectations, I'm sure, that he placed on himself.
That's it for the round so far this week. I'll see you same time, same place next week.
See you, Mitch.